MCSC family, we gonna deviate from our regularly scheduled programming today. Can we talk? Y'all know I like to come here sometimes and I like to vent. I consider y'all my family, right? I consider y'all my family. So sometimes when I come here, it's to that to see if I'm crazy, to see if maybe I'm looking too far into things. If and most of the time we're on the same page, 98% of the time we're on the same page, which is fine. But this time, I'm a little bit more irritated than usual. Because I feel like even there are progressives who've even fallen for this trap. So I just had to do a video about it. And I know it's stupid. It's silly. I shouldn't even be validating the nonsense coming out of the mainstream. But this is just something I hate when progressives fall for mainstream propaganda, especially when it's so well concealed, right? It looks like, well, this is the morally right thing to do. And so because progressives are so stuck on doing what they believe to be or what is portrayed to be morally right, oftentimes they get way too caught up in the narrative. And they don't stop and take a step back and ask why the narrative is being presented in a way, and why it's being conveniently pushed at a particular time in a particular political climate. Bernie's tax returns. Y'all, I don't care. I don't care to see them. If I see them, cool. If not, I don't care. I know some people may think that's controversial, but I think it's more of the fact that I just have more important things to work out and I'm sure worry about, and I'm pretty sure that most of the country has more important things to work out and worry about as well. I mean, what do you think we're going to see when we get Bernie Sanders' tax returns? He made maybe $1 million or so off of some books, which is well deserved. I mean, 2016 was historic. It was really historic. Like, we don't even have a viable Tulsi Gabbard run right now if Bernie Sanders didn't do what he did which basically was a catalyst of Tulsi recognizing how corrupt the DNC was and how basically everything that she had dealt with or everything that she had learned about the Democrats up until that point was a lie, amongst other things. So we don't even have a Tulsi Gabbard presidency. No chance of one. Or at least not not how we have a chance right now. She was being pushed for presidency, but she was going to be as a neoliberal, as a corporatist, not as, the dove that she has become for the progressive movement. Understand that candidates all across, AOC is born of the Bernie Sanders movement. She is the Bernie-crat. She's one of the Justice Democrats. And I have my differences with the organization of the Justice Democrats, like the higher ups. But there are a lot of good people that come out of it and that have worked for it. And AOC is one of them. I even believe Ilhan Omar is another one. I'm not quite sure. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure she's a Justice Democrat as well. Our revolution came from that. So when you're talking about 2016, if anybody deserved to write a book and become a millionaire off of it after everything that Bernie Sanders went through, it would be Bernie. So is that what it's going to show us? Oh, man, Bernie had a couple of weeks on his hand and wrote a book and became a millionaire for the first time in 77 years. Because oftentimes in these little articles that they put out, they never talk about the fact that he was literally the poorest member of Congress. He had a net worth, once again, a net worth of $300,000. You know what a net worth is, in case you don't know? That's like assets included. That is including the worth of the house that was in his name, or that is in his name. What are they going to say? They're going to show that he owns 2 houses? Because everybody keeps saying he's a millionaire, like that he owns 3 houses. It's not true, people. It isn't true. It isn't. Jane inherited a house And I believe they sold that one, or the first house they had. I think it was Jane's house they sold, that she inherited, so that they can afford the house that they subsequently bought on the beach. Is that what it's going to show us? Oh, God. Bernie has two houses, a beach house and a regular house, like most 77-year-old people who would like to retire or who were fortunate enough to retire. Difference is he's still working for his money. Is that what it's supposed to show us? Like, what are we supposed to be? What are you all expecting? This is as much excitement that Bernie Sanders generates. What the hell do you think his tax is going to look like? This man is probably the most boring man on the planet. I'm pretty sure he only owns 2 suits. And one of them is always in the cleaners. My man owns 3 ties. Got his first haircut when he showed up at Killer Mike's barbershop in probably 7 or 8 years. I think he just recently fixed his glasses. He don't care. He doesn't care about materialistic things. If he wanted to sell out and become a millionaire a while ago, he could have done so. The reason that I feel like it's so necessary to call out the just sheer lunacy of pretending like this is an issue is because I know why they're doing it. And the reason that they're doing it is because they're trying to loosely associate critiques and attacks of Trump to Bernie Sanders. Follow me here. This is a guilty by association type of thing. Trump wouldn't release his tax returns. Once again, I actually am in the camp. I probably don't care about Trump's tax returns either. I care so much as Trump as a president is legally required to do it. That I care about. But like, what am I going to find? Trump's corrupt and he did corrupt things. Oh, God. Sound the alarms. More important things to worry about. He should have never been in office to begin with. But the same people who are making a big deal about these tax returns, by the way, seem to have had little to nothing to say about Clinton's Wall Street speeches that she said she was going to release, but she never did and then WikiLeaks ended up releasing them. So they made a big deal about Trump's tax returns. They're making a big deal about Bernie's tax returns. Hillary made a couple of promises too. But the reason that they're trying to associate Trump and Bernie, or at least they're trying to associate the tax return situation, is because by gaslighting, well, not gaslighting, because it's the truth, right? Oh, Trump isn't releasing tax returns because they're corrupt. He's a corrupt guy. He's doing corrupt businesses. Russia at some point. Putin probably is his accountant. That's what they're going to say. Now, if you say these things enough, and then you say, oh, well, look over here. Bernie hasn't released his tax returns. What the neoliberals will then say, it's probably for the same reason. Because we know Trump isn't releasing his tax returns because of A, B, C, and D. Therefore, if Trump is doing it for that reason, Bernie must be doing it for the same reason. Right? It is a manufactured logical fallacy. That's what it is. It's not on accident. They're doing it on purpose. They're making these ridiculous leaps in logic in order to associate Bernie Sanders with the corruption that Trump is known for. But I gotta wonder once again, the Clinton Foundation, didn't Hillary run a whole corrupt charity organization, nonprofit? Were there a bunch of articles from the mainstream about how she promised she would disband it and she would not be associated with it at all? And her husband wouldn't be either. And then she did the total opposite. Literally did government deals with the Clinton Foundation included. And yet they're concerned about Bernie's tax returns. Well, they don't have anything else to talk about. To be honest with you, when somebody's a front runner, and he is indeed the front runner, when someone is a front runner, This is, I mean, and when it's a progressive, nonetheless. Like I said, think about the ridiculous attacks they make on Tosi. Legitimately Hindu-phobic attacks. People still, for some reason, believe she supported torture because she said she was conflicted in a small clip where most of the time the clip that people are referring to, she said she was conflicted about a report, not about torture. She says that she is personally against any type of human suffering. But the report she was conflicted about because she had not seen it yet, so she didn't even know what the hell they were talking about. But they lob these attacks, make these logical leaps, and they do it on purpose to corrupt the narrative. So just in case you want some validation for what I'm saying as far as that whole Trump thing, them trying to associate Bernie with Trump, well, let's look at this New York Magazine article. The first paragraph reads, at a time when the long-standing chorus of Democratic demands to see Donald Trump's tax returns is reaching a crescendo, no, it's not, and extending into a congressional request to the IRS for the documents, won't happen. There's a bit of an embarrassing sideshow going on. One of the top candidates for nomination to oppose Trump, Bernie Sanders, had been conspicuously dragging his feet on disclosing his own tax returns for years. Really? Really? Well, that's some creative writing for your ass. This is done. I mean, media propaganda is it's a psyop. It's a psyop. This is how propaganda works. You use certain buzzwords. You convince people, like you link certain words in a string and then say, therefore, this is the problem. It's like you say, A is B and B is C and therefore F. Of course. Why wouldn't we skip straight to F? That's exactly what happens. That's what they're doing. Think about it like this. At a time where long-standing chorus of Democratic demands, what they're trying to once again say is, when they say Democratic, it is an attempt to say Bernie is outside of the Democrats who are requesting the taxes of Trump, right? That's what they're trying to say. Democratic demands, oh, he's your Democratic frontrunner. Oh, and look, he's doing the same thing as Trump. He must be the same. That's what they're trying to say. To see Donald Trump's tax returns, like I was saying in the beginning of the video, clearly they're trying to associate Bernie Sanders with Donald Trump through the tax returns, and it's reaching a crescendo and extending into the congressional request to the IRS for documents. Make it seem a lot more dramatic than it really is on Bernie's behalf. That request has nothing to do with Bernie, literally nothing to do with him. But they're going, of course, to pretend it does. That's the point. He said there's a bit of an embarrassing sideshow. There's nothing embarrassing about this. Bernie Sanders is not the Democratic nominee yet. Bernie Sanders is not the president. Bernie Sanders was the poorest member of the Senate until very, very recently. And I would even venture to say, if I'm not crazy, that would be including the Congress and the Senate. Like, he was the poorest. And that might be maybe one or two people poorer than him, but he was he was worth $300,000 when he, once again, that's including his assets. So that was including the house he sold. Or one of the houses he sold. So like, once he sold that, technically, he won't even worth $300,000 anymore. Of course, once again, the book sales are what boosted him. So they're calling this embarrassing, but what's embarrassing about not releasing your tax returns to the public before it's time for you to do so? I don't get it. I mean, Bernie very rarely lies on purpose. So whenever he says like, oh, my tax returns are boring as hell, I 100% believe him. The man has 2 suits. We just covered this. And one of them's always in the cleaners. So he really walks around with like 1.5 suits and maybe 3 ties. Same color. All the ties are the same color. Probably had the same pair of glasses for 15 years. Knowing Bernie. Come on. So then they say, one of the top candidates for nomination to oppose Trump, Bernie Sanders, has been conspicuously dragging his feet on disclosing his own tax returns for years. Really? I might be crazy, but I'm going through this article. Y'all are here with me. And yeah. Oh, here we go. To be clear, Sanders is far from being the... And don't you love how they put stuff like this at the end of the article? I figured that's where I find it, so I skipped straight to the end. First, this sentence says, while it's true nobody thinks that Sanders' tax returns will expose him as a Wall Street stooge, the claim that he should be held to a lower standard of disclosure than anyone else isn't going to fly. Literally, no one has made that claim. Who do you know has ever said Bernie Sanders shouldn't be held to the same standards as everyone else who's held the position of the presidency? When have we ever said that Bernie's different though? Bernie's different. No. But they have to associate him with the old white guy who's already in office. The other populace on the other side of the political fence. The one who basically took Bernie's platform and pretended it was his and then didn't do anything. No more war, all that good stuff. Remember, he said he was going to give Medicare for everybody, or medical insurance to everybody. All that good stuff never happened, but that's what they're trying. That's why they're trying to loosely associate him and Trump. But it gets better. To be clear, Sanders is far from being the only 2020 candidate who hasn't released his tax returns. So why the hell have you not done an entire article about Amy Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, Jay Inslee, Kirsten Gillibrand? I don't understand. But then they said, excuse me. Those are the only four that haven't released their tax returns. So in other words, Beto O'Rourke, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, all these people, Joe Biden, all of these people have not released their tax returns. And guess what? It's perfectly fine because none of them are the nominee yet. Once again, not that they haven't filed taxes, but because they haven't released the returns. Because what's going on, in my humble opinion, in their personal lives, even if I don't like them, that's not my business until they're in the highest office of the United States. In California, when she was attorney general, that was California's business to know what's going on in her private life or what's going on in her public life. Once again, when you're in public office and you're attorney general or a senator, you shouldn't have too complicated of a tax return. Things are different, most of the time, but still. But that's still not my business until you are in a public office that affects my life. Like the presidency. Now, you can make the argument, of course, that obviously he's a senator of Vermont, but a senator does affects everybody's lives, which I wouldn't disagree with that. But the presidency is a different thing. People want to know if you're doing quid pro quo. We know as a senator, he was poor, relatively. Not poor, but, middle class. Upper middle class because of Jane's income. But basically, no one else, except for four other candidates, two of them are innocuous, like nobody even cares about them. So two top 5 candidates, two top 6 candidates-ish have released their tax returns. Where are the articles demanding Kamala's tax returns? They pick the issues that they believe people are the most vulnerable on. Notice they didn't even mention Tulsi in it. This would have been a great opportunity to bring up Tulsi Gabbard, right? She hasn't released her tax returns. I'm just saying. Tulsi, where are your tax returns? You got some stocks in Hawaii resorts? I bet you do. The truth of the matter is, because it's not about the tax returns, it's selective outrage. And it's directed outrage. Tulsi doesn't do a lot. She hasn't been in office for long. Her FEC documents are always good. Bernie, however, had a little bit more, more gravitas, more attention, and he came up during a time where tax returns was a popular attack. With Tulsi, to take a different approach. They try to basically shame her past because it's much more recent than Bernie's past. Like, they realized with Bernie, they were way behind the curve. By the time they tried to bring up Bernie's past, because Bernie has a past. Bernie voted for Kosovo. He voted to bomb Gaza, like, in conjunction with Israel. Like, Bernie has a problematic past in some issues as well. Voted for the crime bill. However, by the time his wave took off, and we're still seeing the effects of this today, he was untouchable. It doesn't matter what you say. Like, I have to tell people sometimes that, like, as far as the negative hits on Bernie's foreign policy is concerned, or Tulsi's foreign policy from like 2014, 2015, it doesn't matter because, I mean, if you're going to use that as the reason why you don't want to endorse Bernie or Tulsi or vote for Tulsi or Bernie, whatever, it's silly because basically Bernie and Tulsi have had the damn near the same foreign policy since she's came into office. Damn near identical foreign policy. It just was in the last 2 to 3 years, Tulsi stepped her game way up, and that comes with experience. But Bernie had already etched his name in progressive stone. And so people are like, that's not true. What are you talking about? That's not true. Bernie's always been great on foreign policy. He's always been great. No, he hasn't. He admits this. But you can't use that attack on Bernie if you're the establishment. However, Tulsi's problematic past, if you want to call it that, on foreign policy is more recent and can be called into question because people haven't established the love for Tulsi as they have for Bernie. And you have the side, unfortunately, of the Bernie Sanders supporters who are looking for any reason to silence progressive opposition because the status quo has been pretty beneficial to a lot of people. The status quo of Bernie being the only person, the godfather of progressivism, if you will, at this moment, I would say that he is. AOC is different. AOC doesn't challenge Bernie and is not a challenge to Bernie. Nina Turner's different. Nina Turner's not a challenge for Bernie. She works in conjunction with Bernie. They're okay with people working in conjunction with Bernie, but not with people who they believe are perceivably challenging Bernie. So you can lob these type of attacks. But the taxes, people are like, okay, and if you try that with Tulsi, people are really, really not going to care. They're like, where the hell is this even coming from? This is stupid. Is she the nominee? She's not even close yet. Well, Bernie, you can say stuff like this because people remember 2016. It's still stupid, though. It really is. Could have did a whole article about Kamala. Could have did a whole article about Biden. But no, we want to focus on tax returns from a guy who was literally 2 years ago the poorest person in the Senate. Okay, this is such a waste of time. Thank you guys for sitting with me through this rant. I appreciate it. Seriously, I really do. Like I said, this was literally a rant. It was just me venting out of frustration because like there's so much more important issues we could be talking about. So many more important issues we could be writing about, doing videos about, and instead we're really having to see people dedicate manpower and woman power and precious minutes on this planet that we don't have that much more of to talk about Bernie Sanders tax returns. Because the outcome of every election the last 70 years has been made and determined by someone's tax returns. Give me a damn break, people. Give me a break. All right, appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Peace. Thanks for watching that segment of Mika Says Sukasa. Don't forget to join us on Roku and catch our Roku exclusives. Also, help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and JustNForm.com. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.